Welcome back. I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe. And Dan, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to talk about the shocking crime statistics by foreigners in both Pattaya and Phuket.
But folks, first, like, subscribe, bang the notification button, and please share with your family and friends. It helps the algorithm, it helps us, and it helps you. And Dan, start us off on this topic here.
Well, apparently last year, crime in Pattaya and Phuket surged by 15%. Over 12,000 residents, nearly half tied to foreigners exploiting a paradise. Now, what does it mean when a heaven becomes a hell? Are we witnessing the collapse of order or the birth of something darker?
Well, I'm going to add a little spin to that. I think sometimes things happen when you have a place like Pattaya Beach, a country like Thailand, where people from all different nationalities and all over the world come in, and some people may feel entitled. And there's also another sociological aspect is Southeast Asia doesn't draw the best residents from other parts of the world. We have culture clashes, and in turn, it can lead to crime clashes, Dan.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish it were just culture clashes, but okay, I'll give that attention to, say, Russian criminals, Chinese criminals, Indian criminals who reside here, but there's also Westerners from developed countries, Americans,
Absolutely.
Germans, Australians. I mean, we recently did one on that German man who was killed by 3 German criminals in Pattaya. Now, to other people, they think I'm a hypocrite, but no, in reality, it's because of foreigners like that, as in people who look like you and I, just people like that I think Thailand should have stricter immigration laws. And I don't want criminals here. I don't care if they look like me or not. I don't want criminals or con men here. And when I was in Pattaya, I saw a lot of Western con artists, and who are the prime targets but other Westerners.
Yes, we're focusing on Pattaya, but I think on another video, we can do an expansive one. But yes, there has been a 15% spike in crime. And the truth is, a lot of people consider Thailand their paradise. But what happens, Dan, when paradise meets perdition, Dan? Do we create crime, Dan, to define ourselves against it?
That's a good question. I don't know about create it, but some people just never had the opportunity to commit crimes in the first place, or fulfill vices for such a cheap price. And when it's right there in their face, I don't care who you are. I mean, you could have been a 4-star admiral in the U.S. Navy, and when the vices are right there, it's really tough to say no once it's right in front of you. 90% chance you're going to get away with it. There's no telling what people could do.
Well, I ask people, would you do this? Would you behave like this in your home country? And that's the question I ask some of them. Look, I'm no angel, and look, I'm far from perfect. But what's been going on here lately is it really been unacceptable. And the problem here, if this keeps up, the Thai government, instead of maybe disciplining those foreigners that are committing the criminal acts, could, who knows, toughen the immigration and take it out on all of us. Who knows what the government is thinking?
That is typically what happens, as with our native country, the United States. Yeah, when a certain nationality or ethnicity or whatever commits crimes, it all have to pay the price, and that's it. As I've said before, I don't believe in extremes. I don't believe in too loose immigration or too tight of immigration. I believe something sensible, but that's for another discussion.
Right, it is. When you talk about that, we're focusing on Pattaya, over 7 million people yearly. Pattaya gets 7 million visitors a year. So it's known for obviously walking street, its beaches, the cheapness of it means not expensive. And we're not doing a video on Bangkok, but to compare the cheapness, on average, Pattaya is 30 to 40% cheaper than Bangkok. So what I'm trying to say is a lot of tourists come to Pattaya, and it can get crowded. So, and a lot of times it can also cause crime.
Yeah, apparently Plato had a quote in Republic and warning that excess of vices erodes justice. Pattaya and Phuket are reflections of this.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up Phuket. They've been in the news the news lately too. Phuket, it's one of the most famous spots in the world. In Thailand, it's another place that draws a lot of tourists, and drawing 10 million people a year. And a lot of Russians put down their roots in Phuket. also North Pattaya also. And so now as we see, the economic stakes are also high. Over 2 billion baht flows in annually per city. So that sounds great, but it also draws a dark side. There lately has been a spike in crime, and it's caused it's caused a lot of publicity and not good publicity.
Right. I mean, for example, in just this year alone, 2025, 27 tons of narcotics has been seized nationwide. Phuket and Pattaya moving 1.2 billion in meth and cocaine, according to Tiger. And 1 in 5 tourists report theft or scams annually here in Thailand.
Well, the prime targets of that, Dan, are pickpocketing, bar scams, spiked drinks, and that's been happening more frequently, especially in Laos, but that's another video. Basically, some victims are robbed.
Yeah.
What about, Dan, talk about the transnational gangs, what's the spike in that?
Well, a lot of people from ex-Soviet countries are now here in Thailand. I mean, a lot, and the numbers really spiked with the Russia-Ukraine war. Many came here as refugees, but unfortunately, many of them were already troublemakers back home, and they saw it as an excuse to set up shop here. I'm not saying most Russians or Ukrainians are troublemakers, by the way. I'm just saying that a lot of people unfortunately took advantage, and we don't know who are the real refugees or people trying to escape, and we don't know who are criminals pretending to be refugees. It's tough.
It also breeds, there's a lot of overstaying happening here. For example, about 4 days ago, there was a story, it made national news. There was a British man who overstayed by 25 years. And the Thai immigration was amazed. How can he do it this long? So this man had stayed by over 25 years. And there's been some violent attacks, some other things. There was a spike in some violent crime, gangs, jumping, fights. And what does that reflect? Some sociologists would say, I heard a professor in college say this years ago, Thailand doesn't always draw the best from other parts of the world. So some critics will say, well, you're not getting the socially best people from these Western countries. And there may be some truth in that, because Southeast Asia, we're focusing on Pattaya and Phuket, but has that reputation. So maybe as these people who are struggling socially or economically back in their home countries, are they bringing with them a anger, a frustration, and it breeds itself out here in Thailand, here in Pattaya or Phuket?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, Nietzsche, his philosophy on the abyss is back here, but they say money talks, BS walks. Well, Southeast Asia is almost the epitome of that.
Well, we sort of touched on this a couple minutes ago. I touched on a little bit with the talking about the British man. You know how many overstayers, Dan, there were in 2024? There are 500 over. I can't believe this, but this is from the Thai Examiner. Over 500,000 foreigners overstayed had overstayed visas in 2024. That in both Pattaya and Phuket. That's a lot for four. That's 500,000. I couldn't believe that. I had to do a double take and look that up. That is a high number.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie. If I were one of the top guys in immigration, I'd be pretty pissed off, and I'd probably make some new rules. But that's just...
And the British guy I talked about a few minutes ago, he was in Chiang Mai. 25 years. That's 9,135 days, Dan. And he was finally caught, just caught this year in Chiang Mai in a crackdown.
I heard about that, but I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm like, 25 years? How could they not know? I mean, seriously. Do you know how many times I've wanted to do just the most trivial of things, and they asked me for my passport, wanted to see my pay, when did you enter? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, sometimes just making a simple transaction. And somehow he was able to evade for 25 years.
That's unreal, because don't you gotta make money? How is this man living? You have to bring your passport if you're getting money coming in. Maybe you have to go to the hospital. Well, it's fascinating. Immigration was, they couldn't believe it. Also, we talk about some people when they come to Southeast Asia, but here in Pattaya, Thailand, there's lax laws. It's a criminal haven in the past. Corrupt cops, 20% implicated in bribes. So it makes Thailand a fugitive's Eden. 22 gangs tracked back This is back. This is from 2014, and back in 2014, there were 22 gangs that were being tracked. All right, some analysts say that's likely tripled now.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And people from all tips and ethnicities or whatever you want to describe it as, they come here to Thailand, unfortunately. At least find them more in hubs like, say, Pattaya or Phuket. You find less of them in, say, Isan.
Well, Isan, a lot of people, some foreigners go up there and live, but not nearly as many as like a Pattaya or Phuket. What about sex offenses, Dan? In 2023, 300 plus over 300 foreigners were arrested for basically violent sex crimes. So again, people come here. Obviously, sex tourism, people do come here for that. So locals demand action, obviously. But also on the one hand, Dan, Thailand needs money. They fear losing 60 billion baht. But what do you do, Dan, if you're the Thai government?
Okay, well, personally, what would I personally do, are you asking?
Yeah, so say the Thai government comes to Dan Williams and says, okay, Dan, we don't want to lose 60 billion baht in tourist revenue. But we're tired of a lot of these foreigners committing all these crimes. So Dan Williams, we're asking you to give us some suggestions. Help us.
Okay, if I was to give suggestions, I'd say make prostitution officially legal, not just tolerated or decriminalized, but officially legal. And therefore, taxes would be paid. But also, okay, I'm for people doing what they want when it's consenting adults. But when they're either not consenting or not adults, I'm not okay with that. And I'd say, in exchange for prostitution becoming legal and tax being paid, there'll be much harsher sentences for people who mess with underage, people who commit rape, or whatever. I believe in harsher penalties for those people. To set an example, say, if you want to hurt people, don't come here. If you want to have fun and pay your taxes, then do what you want.
And I think from a philosophical angle, I'll say this. When people come here, too, a lot of people come here because they don't have enough money to live in their home country. Some of them are on a limited budget. That could also frustrate them. Some of them act out because they can't, maybe back home, they can't express themselves. Thailand's a place where a lot of foreigners, for some odd reason, they want to reinvent themselves. They want to be they want something new in their life. That includes reinventing them. What I mean is, people pretend to have more money than they have. People exaggerate their job accomplishments. It happens in the veteran community all the time, where people exaggerate their military service. Being an ex-military guy, I talk to guys, I've seen it. And some people, like you said, yeah, maybe legalize prostitution, but with that comes responsibility. There shouldn't be messing with underage girls. You shouldn't be raping, forcing people to do things against their wills. I would even possibly, this is controversial, you can legalize more drugs. But with that being said, if you drive behind the wheel or hurt somebody on them, you get a harsh sentence.
Right, and I'd like to do a whole other video on legalization of drugs itself.
Absolutely.
For countries in general. But anyways, yeah, that being said, so now here's another question. There's also extortion, money laundering, narcotics, cybercrime by organized criminals of different nationalities, by the way, and ethnicities.
Right.
One Russian, I think, was tortured, beaten, burned with cigarettes, and dumped with broken bones.
Yeah.
It was Mafia hit for like $500,000 debt. And then that was in Phuket. And recently in Pattaya, just last month, 3 teens, including a politician's son, cut a Russian tourist's arm, stole $2,000 while laughing as he bled, but caught within 6 hours. Yeah, like I say, I wouldn't want such people there. Such people coming if I made the rules.
No, of course not. But like we were discussing here, there's been a 15% increase. So right now, as the recording of this video, the question is, what can we do about it? And how about in Pattaya, Dan, 3 teens, including a politician's son?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you just talked about that. Yeah. Here's a detail. This is what I meant to read, actually. 170,000 Russians came to Thailand in 2023. Some of them were buying villas. Allegedly, some were allegedly laundering millions. That's why the reason they were buying these villas. A 2009 cable tagged Pattaya as a mafia hub. This is according to the Bangkok Post. And again, that's you say, well, that's back in time. Well, many people here in 2025 still consider it a mafia hub. Now,
back in 2004, or actually 2003, the first time I ever came as a naive backpacker, even I could see as a naive backpacker that a lot of mafioso stuff happened in Pattaya. So when I heard 2009, that's absolutely no shock whatsoever.
As of the time of this video, the Thailand's being tougher on foreigners with banking laws. Why? One of the reasons, and we're not saying all Chinese do this, a lot of Chinese gangland brutality, online gambling, call center scams, and then some violent assaults. So, and there's been a lot of horrific cases. Dan, tell us about this horrific case in Pattaya in January 2025.
Yeah, Lee Jiarui, also known as Bobby, beat a businessman with a metal pipe, fractured his skull, and the guy was unconscious for hours. And what was seized were 100,000 US in cars. And his gambling netted 3.5 million baht daily. So that's like, what is that, like 100,000 US dollars, more than 100,000 US dollars daily. And then last month, a Taiwanese boss ran a $10 million ring, beat a defector with a chair leg, fractured his skull, and the blood-soaked floor. That's no surprise. So that's nothing unique, and that's nothing that...
There were 50-plus Chinese nabbed here so far in 2025. Pattaya raids, scams that basically they were defrauding 50 million globally. And again, that goes back to a lot of other supposed business fronts that were laundering money, call center scams, arraignment of things. And again, this isn't just Russian and Chinese. There's been Americans, Brits. We're talking really all these foreigners. We're mentioning these because these are the ones that have been in the news lately.
Yeah, and something else I just came to my mind now. Maybe the reason why they come to here, Thailand, besides the low cost of living, is also because many countries, including cheap countries, do not allow you to enter if you have a felony on your record. This includes Japan, Brazil, I think Argentina, some African countries. India, I think, doesn't allow you to come if you have a felony. I mean, so many countries that will bar entry. So.
Right. So as the world changes, Thailand is also going through changes. And again, I believe the Thai government is eventually going to come down on a lot of this stuff. When they do, I hope they don't take it out on all of us. But again, who knows what they're going to do?
Yeah, unfortunately. Among the reasons why I didn't like living in Pattaya when I did was because I saw enough people who looked just like me committing crimes. I mean, I wouldn't see them actually commit crimes, but I knew they were criminals. And I thought, a cop wouldn't know me from them. And I don't like getting confused with criminals. I know that some people know how that feels.
What about this Chinese gambling bloodbath in February 2020? Just this past February, this Taiwanese boss ran a 10 million ring, basically some kind of, I don't know if it was a drug ring or some kind of gambling ring, but he beat a defector with a chair leg, leaving a fractured skull and a blood-soaked floor.
I already mentioned that one.
Yeah, I know, but I just can't believe it. What causes people to do that? I don't get it.
That's typical criminals. That the more I read about crime on an international level, the more I find them to be the same. What they do to defectors, what they do. But anyway, and for the philosophical part of that, according to Confucianism, harmony clashes with chaos. Do these gangs fill a void by uprooted tradition or twist collectivism into tyranny? A lousy Tao's suggests balance. Here violence reigns. Perhaps this is the yin unchecked. A philosophical rupture where power supplants virtue. Are they agents of disorder or symptoms of a world adrift?
Well, what about, Dan, you think the local Thais are going to eventually have enough? Because a lot of foreigners treat Pattaya like a lawless playground. Some are saying, hey, you get caught doing a violent crime, you should not only be arrested, but automatically be deported and banned from Thailand.
Some people, that's not enough. Some people say, yeah, you escaped justice, meaning a Thai prison. And most people would rather do time in a Western prison than a Thai one for a lot of reasons. But
sure, of course.
So some people would want to see those foreigners do hard Thai time first and then get deported. And I got to admit, some of these foreigners, what they've done here in Thailand, I wouldn't mind some of them getting thrown into a Thai prison because.
Yeah, and the deal is this: Thailand has to balance their economic needs. Look, going deep into that's a whole other video. But there's a lot of tourism money hanging in the balance, but they also have to balance their country's needs and their citizens' needs, and also for the good tourists, the families that come, or the people who just want to come here and live a peaceful life, and not. I don't think people realize. Well, I shouldn't say that. Most people realize, but some, when you're an expat, your actions affect a lot of the times affect the whole expat community.
Right, because when you're a minority and you don't look like most of the people here, you're going to get judged to a different standard. It's inevitable. That's not anyone's culture. It's just human nature. It's mathematics, whatever you want to call it. But it is the case.
All right, so when we talk about this subject, we've talked about it in depth. So, Dan, what is your perspective on this? What is your perspective? What do you think here about how would you balance this out? The tourism needs, the Thais' money needs, but also they want the country safe.
I've put out more warnings for people. If I could have it my way, I'd have foreigners who be warned, who intend to set up shop and commit criminal activities here. I want them to see what a Thai prison looks like or get warned. I mean, for example, in Singapore, I may not agree with their drug laws, but they make it clear. If you come over a certain amount of hard drugs, you get a mandatory death penalty.
You know, we over the years, there's been the creation of tourism police. And it's going to take work for not only the foreigners working with the Thai government, the Thai police. So it's going to take a whole bunch of wheels in motion to calm this down.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, what's it called? Hobbes. I'm reading off my notes again. Hobbes with this Levanthian craves order, and here it falters. A society, a fragile contract shattered by greed or delusion we impose on chaos. John Locke's natural rights clash with reality. Do locals deserve safety, or must they sacrifice it for prosperity? Is justice possible in a world of competing wills? Or are we condemned to this tension eternally?
Well, folks, the question is, what is your philosophy? Is it stricter laws or radical freedom? And the Thai government is going to have to make that decision. Also, though, it's going to be up to each and every tourist or retiree or people or foreigner working here. We all also have to take a dose of personal responsibility, because the Thailand we know and love, we want to stay here in Thailand, the place that we know and love. And part of that is being not only a good citizen wherever you're from, but a good global citizen. And we have to always keep in mind we are guests in the kingdom of Thailand, folks.
That's right. That's right. So, folks, I hope you liked this video. Joe, do you have anything to add?
No, but I'm going to tell you, folks, we want you to please like, subscribe, share with your friends. Share with your friends what you've seen in Pattaya or Phuket. Or if you've never been here, check out the video. Send us some questions about Pattaya or Phuket. And
by the way, we're on Facebook, Instagram, X. We're a Facebook page, and Instagram page, and we're growing, as well as X, formerly known as Twitter.
And subscribe for more philosophical dives. And, you know, we've talked about Russian mafia bloodbaths, Chinese gang wars, Indian scams, all, immigration issues. So this video had a little bit of everything. And we want to know now. It's your turn, folks. Tell us what you think.
All right, folks. Have a great night or day wherever you are.
Take care.